All right, so I'm going to start with a question. Is there a dragon singing in a withered tree? Who says yes? The rest of you say no. Okay, this is from a Dogen fascicle called Dragon Song. I took a class with Kokyo Henko, who's going to be coming here to teach us at the end of the month on the fascicle Dragon Song. So, what is this withered tree? A withered tree is a tree that has really let go of everything. All the leaves have been let go of, all the flowers. And it's maybe a metaphor for Zazen, where in Zazen, we let go, we move toward silence and stillness. But silence and stillness is not the end, because in that withered tree of silence and stillness is a dragon singing. So what is the dragon singing? There are lots of different ways of interpreting it. One way is to say that this dragon singing is actually the phenomenal world, that we move into silence and stillness, sort of moving away from the phenomenal world, but then it blossoms into this amazing song. Or it can be the outpouring of creativity that can come from, that sort of has its origin in this silence and stillness. And Dogen himself is a really good example of that. So Dogen's work is really central to our practice here at the Zen Center. He lived in the 1200s in Japan. He's considered the founder of our Soto Zen lineage. And he was immensely creative. And I just wanted to show you this book. It's called The Treasury of the True Dharma Eye, which is a collection of Dogen's work. And I just wanted to bring it because it has a beautiful heft to it. I was a little bit afraid of giving it to my Jisha to carry in like this, but she's very strong. She could do it. It's got this beautiful heft. It has beautiful thin pages with a very readable font. It has an extensive and extremely helpful glossary at the end. So I just want to encourage you not to be afraid. There's a certain fear of Dogen, but not to be afraid of Dogen. And I think of this book, the Treasury of the True Dharma Eye, as Dogen's dragon song. I mean, it's really a dragon song, I think. And so, if I try to imagine, well, what does a dragon song sound like? I imagine that it would be rather startling, and unexpected sounds would come out. It might have a certain profundity to it. So when I think of the Shobogenzo, the Treasury of the True Dharma Eye, I remember the wildness of Dogen. People think it's very serious, and it is very serious and very profound, but it's also wild and poetic and full of things like, I made a list here. Singing dragons, golden Buddhas, heads on top of heads, flowers falling from the sky, eyeballs and lions in skulls, the moon spitting and swallowing, Did you know that the moon spits and swallows? Mountains walking, treasure boats, etc., etc. And it is true that it's very puzzling. His festivals are very puzzling, but we like a good puzzle, right? So I just want to encourage you to take on this this practice. Okay, so the title of this book, as I said, is The Treasury of the True Dharma Eye. So what is the true Dharma eye? That's the subject of my talk today. What is the true Dharma eye? Okay, so the story of the Buddha, in the story of the Buddha, we learn that at his enlightenment, his eyeball was smashed. Okay, which means that I think that the eye that sees through the conventional lens was destroyed. Okay, sort of once and for all. So what is this conventional lens? It has to do with our fixed views, our our prejudices, our defensiveness. We want to defend ourselves against uncertainty and difficulty and uncertainty. It's full of agendas. It's full of the desire to control everything. It fears impermanence, okay, and it fears the unknown. And so the conventional eye is an eye that sees through a kind of shell that we build around ourselves, having to do with our self-image is a big part of that also. So the true Dharma eye, which the Buddha then found, what is that now? So he titled this himself, and I think that many of the fascicles, they're called fascicles, there are 96 of them in the book, are about the true Dharma eye. What is the true Dharma eye? So there's this beautiful poem that Galen read at the Buddha's enlightenment ceremony last year. And here it goes. It's the story of the Buddha. On this winter morning, many centuries ago, after long and patient struggle to find the truth, a human being looked up and saw the morning star for the first time and was set completely free, laying down his heavy burden once and for all, realizing unsurpassable peace, heart opened wide as the sky. And from his mouth came forth a great lion's roar. I was, am, and will be fully awakened simultaneously with the entire universe. Thus, mountains, rivers, the great earth, and all living beings are residing in the eye of Shakyamuni Buddha. And Buddha's eye has become each of our bodies here and now, dropped off, compassionate, and joyous beyond measure. So we are Buddha's eye, our bodies, the bodies themselves, we are Buddha's eye, seeing through this, seeing true reality. We just are. Okay, so the first one I wanted to talk about, do we have the chant books? We have that's all right, we can pass them out now. The first fascicle I wanted to talk about is called Manifestation of Great Prajna. And it is a commentary on the Heart Sutra. And so, especially since we have so many new people here today, I thought we should have that in front of us. So we're going to pass this pass this around. So it's on page 4, is that right? Patrick, page 4? On page 4. So we chant this every morning. So those of you who were here for the service this morning, you've already chanted this. Okay, so it starts off, Avalokiteshvara Bodhisattva, when deeply practicing Prajna Paramita, clearly saw that all 5 aggregates are empty and thus relieved all suffering. Okay, so it starts out that way. So Avalokiteshvara is the Bodhisattva of compassion. So her teaching is comes from compassion. It's to relieve all suffering. Prajna is often translated as wisdom beyond wisdom. In other words, wisdom beyond human wisdom, beyond what we are capable as limited beings of understanding. Okay, so the aggregates, that's a translation for the word skanda, sometimes translated as aggregates, but sometimes translated as streams of body and mind. In other words, those things that make up our human experience: form, sensation, perception, mental formations, and consciousness. Okay, so we're encouraged in this first line to see our experience as empty. Okay, so emptiness is it's the word, and it's problematical because it sounds desolate. Emptiness sounds desolate, but actually it isn't. Okay, so emptiness, shunyata is the Sanskrit. The translation of shunyata can also be boundlessness, spaciousness, impermanence, the fact that if we have an essence at all, it's not an individual personal essence, it's an essence that we all share with other human beings and all things. Okay, so we're empty of an individual separate self, as we know from Maite's practice period this summer. We have no separate self. So that's part of emptiness. And I think that included in that is ungraspability. Okay, so we can't grasping form, grasping sensation, grasping our mental formations, just doesn't work. We find out soon enough that where we tried to grasp and control our thoughts or our forms or our bodies, or just doesn't really work. And it's that grasping that creates suffering. And when we stop trying to grasp and hold on, that's where suffering is relieved, when we can see that everything is impermanent, flowing, and constant movement. When we can see that, then that relieves our suffering. And so we try to test that. If you're a Zen student, you want to test that all the time. If I let go, how will I see? We're always trying to find that letting go. So Dogen's translation, or his paraphrase of this first line, is Avalokiteshvara Bodhisattva while experiencing deeply the manifestation of prajna. So he wants to talk about experiencing deeply the manifestation of prajna. Clearly saw with the entire body that all 5 skandhas are empty. Okay, so he's talking about emptiness. In this fascicle, he's talking about emptiness. Emptiness itself, this boundlessness, this ungraspability, this impermanence, as a manifestation of wisdom beyond wisdom. That is what it is, that wisdom beyond wisdom, this wisdom beyond human understanding, is emptiness. And everything is empty. Everything is empty. And so, because everything is empty, in a sense, you can rely on everything. So there's a line later on that says, a bodhisattva relies on prajna paramita, and thus the mind is without hindrance, and without hindrance, there is no fear. Okay, so we can't rely, we can't grasp, we can't rely on any one thing. I can't, I can't rely on, let's say I have a friend that I want to rely on. Well, maybe she'll move away. It's happened to me many times. Or maybe she'll even die, or maybe we'll have a falling out, or I can't rely on any one person or thing, but I can rely on the wholeness of everything streaming together and the emptiness of it. I can rely on that. I think that's, I don't know, I think that's really, really, really helpful. So to see with the true Dharma eye is to awaken to the emptiness of all things, and we can take refuge in all things. And if we want to study, according to this fascicle, if we want to study the profound manifestation of prajna, we study things as we would study empty space. So we study the spaciousness, the space between atoms, the space between the molecules. That's what we study. We study that spaciousness. So this is how to, this is one way of thinking about the true Dharma eye, is to study spaciousness and to know that we can rely upon it. We can rely on all things. Then there's no hindrance. Okay, so, I forgot. My favorite thing in this particular fascicle is this poem that his teacher, Rujing, who lived in China, so Dogen traveled to China to find a teacher. He couldn't find one in Japan. He had a hard time finding one in China. You can imagine what that was like, being on a boat going from Japan to China in 1220 something, what that was like, then traveling around China trying to find a teacher. He finally found a teacher who is even a little wilder than he. Okay, so here's the poem. The entire body is a mouth, wind bell, a wind bell, hanging in empty space. So the entire body is hanging in empty space, like a wind bell, regardless of the wind from east, west, south, or north. So there are all kinds of karmic effects, right? But this body hanging in spaciousness doesn't care. And this body is joining the whole universe in chiming out prajna. So our own bodies are joining the universe in chiming out prajna. And what does it sound like? Ting, ting. Ting, 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 ting. The entire body is a mouth, a wind bell hanging in empty space, regardless of the wind from east, west, south, or north, joining the whole universe in chiming out prajna. Ting, 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 ting. I love that. All right. He never wants to stop with one formulation. You'll notice when you take this on, you decide to take this on. It's incredibly fun. Just want to say that. It is. It really is. Okay. No, what? Later. Oh, I have a really great poet right here beside me. So anyway, so there I'm going to talk about 3 other formulations that he presents. One is in a fascicle called Radiant Light, where he says that everything is radiant light. Everything is radiant light. So this is based on a story about Yunmen, who is one of our Chinese ancestors from the 800s, something like that, well before Dogen. And he lived to be like 86 years old, pretty old at that time, certainly. And he was one of those teachers that would shout or strike you with a staff in order to wake you up. So he was one of the fierce teachers. I just want you to have a picture of him before we continue this story. So in the story, Yunmen ascended the teaching seat and said to the assembly, "Each and every person embodies the radiant light. If you try to see it, it is totally invisible. Then what is each and every person's radiant light?" No one in the assembly answered. Yunmen answered for them: "The monk's hall, the Buddha hall, the kitchen, and the monastery gate." In other words, all their surroundings were their radiant light. So, we could think of this right here, the walls and the cushions and the chairs and the windows and the trees, all as our radiant light. That everything sort of radiates out of us in a sense. So Dogen goes on to say, Yunmen did not say that each and every person's radiant light will appear later, has appeared in the past, or is appearing nearby. Clearly hear the words, each and every person embodies the radiant light. This is my favorite part. Assemble 100 or 1,000 Yunmens and make them investigate together and speak in one voice. Do you like that? Can you imagine 100 Yunmens, 1,000 Yunmens saying every person embodies the radiant light? So this is how Dogen writes. It's pretty good. Each and every person embodies the radiant light is not Yunmen's personal statement. Everyone's light takes itself up and makes the statement. Each and every person embodies the radiant light means all humanity embodies the radiant light. So this is how the true Dharma eye sees that every person and everything embodies the radiant light. I had the experience recently of having my eyes dilated and finding myself in my dining room which was full of sunlight and just feeling like, whoa, if normally our eyes dilate, so we can't really see the radiant light, right? Our eyes are not dilated. They act as protection against too much light, right? But then when you have your eyes dilated, If you could see Patrick's eyes right now. If you're, then suddenly you can see that everything, how radiant everything is. Okay, all right. So grass, trees, tiles, and walls, as well as skin, flesh, bones, and marrow, are the red and white of radiant light. Haze, mist, water, and rocks, as well as the path of a bird and the profound way, are rotating circles of radiant light. Okay. All right. Okay, so moving along. So if you look at everything as a manifestation of prajna, that everything is empty, and as a manifestation of emptiness, we are manifesting prajna. Or if you think of everything as radiant light, that really emphasizes the oneness and sameness of everything. It's not that, oh, that person has a certain glow. It's not like that. It's everything. But then in painting of a rice cake, I think he wants to emphasize that things are painted with different paints. Okay, so he's going to say now that everything is a painting, which is a little bit hard to understand, and for me, a little bit hard to understand. But he does want to say, I think, if you read the whole fascicle, that we're painted with different ingredients. So a rice cake is painted with rice flour. And if you look up rice cake on Wikipedia, you can find that there's an incredible variety of rice cakes all over Asia. Beautiful colors and different flavorings and seasonings and so on. I encourage you to do that. What is a person made of? What is a Buddha made of? How is a Buddha painted? So here's a quotation from Dogen. When mountains and waters are painted, blue, green, and red paints are used. Strange rocks and wondrous stones are used. The 4 jewels and the 7 treasures are used. Can you imagine a painting of a mountain? A mountain is painted with the jewels and 7 treasures. The 7 treasures are, I forget, I was going to write them down, but gold and silver and amber and, many precious objects that come right out of the earth, right? Rice cakes are painted in the same manner. When a person is painted, the 4 great elements, earth, water, fire, and air, and the 5 skandhas, remember, form, sensation, perception, mental formations, and emptiness. So when a person is painted, the 4 great elements and the 5 skandhas are used. When a Buddha is painted, not only a clay altar or lump of earth is used, but the 32 marks, a blade of grass, and the cultivation of wisdom for incalculable eons are used. As a Buddha has been painted on a single scroll in this way, all Buddhas are painted Buddhas, and all painted Buddhas are actual Buddhas. Yeah. Of course. The coming and going of birth and death is a painting. Unsurpassed enlightenment is a painting. The entire universe and the open sky are nothing but a painting. Motion and stillness are nothing but a painting. Our endeavor at this moment is brought forth entirely from a painting. So I thought I would, so what kind of paintings did Dogen look at? So I looked at I Googled painting from the Kamakura era. And it was really a kind of a wonderful thing, because those paintings from that era are full of movement, full of drama, full of full of heroes and monsters, and it kind of reminded me of, has anyone seen the anime Spirited Away? They kind of reminded me of a precursor to Spirited Away, full of movement and drama, and 8-headed monsters, and vengeful ghosts manifesting as thunder gods, huge black clouds in the sky. But I was really kind of surprised. So I read an article about painting at that time. It said it was Japanese painting was very different from Chinese painting, which was more static. That the Japanese painting during that time was very kind of wild, kind of cartoony, a little bit cartoony, kind of wild, very spontaneous, very, very spontaneous. So maybe if we want to think of everything as being a painting, we can think of that spontaneity and that kind of wild drama. Okay, so I thought I was having some trouble connecting to this one. But I came to this line. The moment when a painted rice cake is made of rice flour is the moment of actualizing the way. So the moment when all the ingredients come together, that's when the way is actualized. So as we're practicing, throughout our day, when everything sort of comes together in a kind of composition, I guess. You have moments like that where suddenly you see the yellow banana against the blue of the countertop. It kind of comes together. And that's kind of a moment of actualizing the way. Maybe you'll have some ideas that you can share with me during the Q&A. So, okay, one more. This is a fresco called Within a Dream, Expressing the Dream. Within a dream, expressing the dream. So we hear over and over in Buddhist teachings that we should look at life as a dream. And this has been a practice of mine for a long time. And lately I've been practicing it this way. I had a dream that I was sitting in the Zendo giving a Dharma talk, and Rachel was there, and Joan, and Deborah, and Nikki, and over to my right, Kent. I had a dream. And then suddenly this moment has a certain meaning. Or I'm sitting with my cat. I'm sitting on the floor with my cat. I dreamed that I was sitting on the floor with my cat, and I began to sing to her a little song, and she got up and walked all the way around me. So if I see it as a dream, it has a special quality, a special meaning, I think. So with Dogen is saying that this world is an enactment, this life is an enactment of a dream of awakening. It's an enactment of a dream of awakening. Okay, so he quotes the Lotus Sutra, another really beautiful poem. All Buddhas with bodies of golden hue, splendidly adorned with 100 auspicious marks, hear the Dharma and expound it for others. Such is the fine dream that ever occurs. In the dream, you are made king. Then forsake palace and household entourage, along with utmost satisfaction of the five sense desires, and travel to the site of practice under the Bodhi tree. On the lion's seat, in search of the way, after 7 days, you attain the wisdom of the Buddhas, completing the unsurpassable way. And this poem goes on to tell more of the story of Buddha's life. But to me, the key is, this is the dream that is occurring constantly. This dream of the Buddha's enlightenment. It didn't just happen once, a couple thousand years ago, 2,500 years ago. It didn't just happen once. It's happening right now. It's happening. This dream of enlightenment. We are here to enact it. It's almost like that's why we're here, to enact from moment to moment this dream of awakening. To express this is Dogen, to express the dream within a dream is the ancient Buddhas. It is to ride in this treasure boat and directly arrive in the practice place. That's where we are, right? We have directly arrived in the practice. This is the practice place. Directly arriving in this practice place is riding in the treasure boat. Meandering dreams and direct dreams, holding and letting go, all freely flow like gusting breezes. So the present, this is another quotation, the present expression of the dream within a dream is to experience right now this expression as expressing the dream within a dream. To experience right now, that this right now is expressing the dream within a dream. Indeed, this is the marvelous joy of meeting a Buddha. So I wanted to present to you before I finish a couple of examples of, of people close to me that I feel have experienced the true Dharma eye. Because this is something for us ordinary people, right? It's not just for monks and it's for us, right? It's for us. So one example is a friend who was recently in the hospital. Something had gone wrong with an operation. She had to go back to the hospital. She had to lie there with a tube in her nose, very painful, very extremely uncomfortable. Some certain bodily fluid coming out through the tube. But so I was texting with her, and what she said that impressed me so much was that she was not denying the extreme discomfort of this situation, but what she said was, but I'm overwhelmed by the kindness of everyone around me. I'm just overwhelmed by that. And to me, that's a person who is not denying, it's not not denying the suffering of that situation, but still able to really see that she's really being cared for. And that just really moved me. And another person was invited to go to Europe. And she'd never been there before. And she had to go visit her sister and, and see some friends and so on. But she had never been to Europe before. She was a little bit uncertain about it. So she went there and she found after these visits that she wanted to stay on. And she's a single woman my age. She decided that she would stay on. And each day became a new experience. She didn't have any agenda. She didn't make a plan of where she was going to go. It was just each day told her where she needed to go and what she needed to see. And I think it was incredibly liberating. And for those of us who followed her on Instagram, where she was posting all kinds of photos, I kind of felt that freedom that she was experiencing, because she wasn't seeing with the conventional eye. And then something happened. It was she witnessed a terrible, terrible, a violent event. And I don't think it's appropriate to go into it here, but she was right there with a man with a knife, in a beautiful park. And she knew she wasn't going to be able to tackle him. Okay, I mean, this was a big man. I saw a picture of him. She wasn't going to be able to tackle him. Well, what could she do? Well, she's a photographer. She filmed him. She didn't run away. She had the presence of mind. She had been really training herself in presence of mind, and in the true Dharma eye. And so she filmed it. And later, the police were incredibly grateful because they had this perfect filming of this event. And then she went on and traveled some more. I was like, oh, come home, aren't you terribly traumatized? But she was able to keep traveling. So anyway, I think that is an example of someone an ordinary person like us, who was able to open her eyes and look at the world without the shell that prevents us from truly seeing true reality. Here we are, ordinary people, right now. And we have arrived at the practice place, riding in our treasure boat. Riding in our treasure boat, we have arrived right now into this flowing dream of awakening. And if we look around, we see the radiance. We can see the radiance of our fellow human beings. I can see your chairs and your cushions and the window and the trees. We can right now see the radiant light. And perhaps all of the ingredients can come together and we are a painting. Yeah. The way is at this moment actualized. And we can see that all is a boundless and ungraspable manifestation of wisdom beyond understanding. We are Buddha's eye.